be afraid of AI. So it depends what you do, right? So I look at digital workers, digital visual effects workers in sort of three categories. Category one is primary creative. That's the person who comes up with the idea and writes the story, the director, the screenwriter, etc. Primary creative. Secondary creative are visual effects supervisors and animation supervisors who take the vision of the director and create something that is visible that you could see. Secondary creative. Tertiary creatives are all of the men and women If you look to like India, for example, so the industry looked for less expensive ways to be able to do the old traditional work, and the less expensive ways was to pay people less. And so in India, people are paid less than in, let's say, the United States for sure, the UK. And so the industry moved towards the lower end work to India. And now there are 2,000 visual effects workers in India. They should be concerned. Well, the similarity is that there's a new technology that's going to replace the older technology. The difference is that when analog moved to digital, there were a whole lot more employment opportunities for people in the industry because there were a lot more visual effects being done because it was easier, right? So if you look at some of the things that George Lucas did with Star Wars, where all of a sudden there's all this animation and CG stuff happening in the background, which you couldn't do in the analog days. But now in the digital days, all of a sudden there is a lot more work, a lot more visual effects, a lot more people, etc. AI is different. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people look at what was in the past and they say, oh, well, what was in the past will apply to the future. It's not necessarily so, because with AI, the role of AI is to replace workers, to do it automated. And so if its goal and the desire of the client is to make things cheaper, that means there's going to be a lot of job loss. So it's very, very different than the analog to digital move. I think there's going to be opportunities in other industries. So, the unfortunate thing is that a lot of men and women that are in their 20s, they want to work for Pixar or Lucasfilm or Industrial Light and Magic. They want to work on movies or video games. But what's going to change is that everything will become visual. For example, I just bought a new coffee machine. In the old days, the coffee machine would come with an instruction pamphlet, and it was printed, and I'd have to go through the instruction. Now the new coffee machine comes with a QR code, and it's visual. So it's not just printed words, it's actually demonstrations, visual stuff that people that are visual communicators will find opportunities in other fields. Medicine, education, manufacturing, all of those things now moving towards visual images, those opportunities will exist. Well, cloud rendering services have made life so much easier and less expensive, right? So instead of, like when I was in Industrial Light and Magic and we had moved to digital, our storage was limited. Or when I started Digital Domain, we had 2 terabytes of storage online, and now we have 2 terabytes, of storage easily. When you go to the store, you could buy a hard drive, right? So the cloud makes things a lot less expensive, a lot easier to manipulate, and the only other issue we have is security. Yeah, cloud computing needs to be secure. The critical issue is content. So technology is here to serve content. If my kids were interested in getting involved in this, I'd say be storytellers. Learn how to tell stories. Learn how to create content. Come up with powerful ideas and concepts, and then the technology will serve that. And as we're moving towards AI, that technology no longer is going to be as expensive, and it's not going to be a closed door policy. People will have access to the technology. I would say learn how to prompt. We've seen a lot of crappy AI lately. However, we've seen a lot of really world-class production value, right? So the people that embraced the AI tools, they're generally visual effects people or animation people. And those visual effects people and animation people are tertiary creative people. And so their idea of using these tools is to create these fantastic environments with fantastic creatures, lots of explosions, lots of camera movement. You know, who cares? I don't want to see that. I want to see stories that make me cry, that make me laugh, that make me happy, that make me sad, that teach me things about the world that I can relate to. I want to be moved emotionally